Hello everyone, welcome back to A Wild Approach, and welcome if you're new. On this channel, we typically talk about native plants, wildlife gardens, rewilding, turning a boring, flat, nothing lawn into something that wildlife can actually use. And I garden in East Tennessee, so when I talk about native plants specifically, I am talking about native to the eastern United States. And I live in the southeast, so there's going to be some overlap between the northeast, the southeast, the midwest, and the central, kind of more eastern side of the central United States. And I will put a map up right now so you can see kind of the general area I'm talking about when I talk about native plants. But again, there will be native maps for each plant if I'm talking about a specific species. Now, in this video, I'm not really talking about specific species throughout the whole entire video. Sometimes I'm just talking about a genus. So keep that in mind. You can take that information and you can overlay it on top of your own region if you have any plants native in your region in that genus. For example, Verbina. Verbina is a great example of this. There are many plants that butterflies love that are verbenas. Some are native and some are not native. So in this video, you're going to hear a lot of generalities, more so than my other videos. And let's just go ahead and get started. Let's just jump in. So I don't have these in a particular order because, as some of you may already know, nectar in a given plant can ebb and flow. There can be an ebb and flow to nectar. Is the plant getting enough sun? If it loves full sun? Is it getting enough rain? These can really affect how much nectar is in a plant. And wildlife can typically tell if a plant has the nectar content that they need. I'm not exactly sure the science behind it. I have heard things about butterflies smelling with their feet, for example. I don't know how bees do it, but maybe sometimes they just try to sip the nectar, and maybe sometimes they don't get anything and sometimes they do, and maybe they stay on the plant longer based on what they get out of the plant. But that being said, I will start this video off talking about how this morning I took some footage of an eastern tiger swallowtail on purple coneflower, and it was going back and forth between different purple coneflower heads throughout this time that I was out there observing it and taking video of it for part of it. I didn't take video of the entire session because it actually stayed out there even when I decided to come back inside. So sometimes a butterfly will linger, and that is the best time to get footage. That's the best time to get pictures. Hi guys, could you hit the like button underneath this video? It helps me know which videos resonate most with you guys. Do you need a short, quick guide to get started in wildlife gardening? Well, turns out I've got just the thing. I just came out with a new free ebook just for you, and it's called A Wild Approach to Gardening 101, and it's available on my website today at macylou.com/shop. It's free, so go check it out. What do you have to lose? Let us get into this. So first I want to talk about garden phlox. Garden phlox is one of those plants that just really attracts butterflies. They can't get enough of it. And I'm going to talk about different species as well as just in general phlox, because there are a lot of different species of phlox. And the one that is garden phlox, that one is typically the one that you see for sale that can get really tall. In my garden, this year it's gotten, I don't know, like 4 feet tall. It's gotten pretty tall, and it's actually leaned over. So you might have to use some staking on the taller garden phlox. But there's also the moss phlox and the ground cover type phlox. Those are just absolutely stunning, and we will talk about species names at the end of this section. And then there's also woodland phlox. Woodland phlox is exactly what it sounds like. It is a phlox that can handle a little bit more shade and is just one of those plants that thrives in a more woodland setting. So I have some Woodland Flocks. I absolutely love it. It smells amazing. I think I have a cultivar called Blue Moon. I think it's called Blue Moon Woodland Flocks. But let's talk about the species names really quick. So Woodland Phlox or Wild Blue Phlox is also called Phlox divaricata. And this one, it does get that bluish, purplish look to it. Here's the native range of Phlox divaricata in the green according to bonap.org. Garden phlox is Phlox paniculata. Phlox paniculata. This is the one that I said earlier, it gets pretty tall and it might need some staking because it might fall over, especially in a storm. Here's the native range of Phlox paniculata according to bonap.org in the green. Phlox subulata is moss phlox or creeping phlox, and this is one of those ground cover phloxes that is just absolutely stunning. It typically blooms in early spring, and you can't really go wrong. I think that it comes in the two different colors. I think it comes in like the pink colors and the more bluey purple colors. Here's the native range of Phlox subulata according to bonap.org in the green. There's another creeping phlox called Phlox stolonifera, so keep that in mind. There's the subulata and the stolonifera, and both have that creeping habit. So just kind of keep that in mind, and maybe just check Bonap and see which ones are native to you. Here's the native range of Phlox stolonifera in the green according to bonap.org. Now, for a phlox that I adore, it is one of my favorite phlox now, and it is called Phlox Amina, aka hairy phlox. I love this phlox. It's also a shorter phlox. It's not super short, but in my garden at least so far, it's more of a draping short little plant, more of a ground cover, but a little bit more fluffy than your subulata and your stolonifera. What I love about Phlox Amina is that it's still blooming right now. It is a powerhouse bloomer. It's been blooming since spring. Like, I don't know. It started months ago, and it's been going and going and going. Now, granted, it had the most blooms in the spring. So the spring bloom, I don't know, the display, if you will, of the spring blooms was just so beautiful and many more flowers than there are now, but it's still putting out some blooms, and it's just gorgeous, and I can't get enough of this plant. It is actually one of my top favorite plants of all time now because I love it so much, and it is a tough cookie. This is a tough plant. I have it planted in my courtyard garden, and my courtyard garden is very hot. I have a it's like pea gravel. It's like those little river stones or pea gravels or whatever that are more rounded and smooth. And I have those rocks surrounding flat, square stepping stones. And that area can get so hot. And it's between my house and my garage. And my garage is a white cinder block garage. And as the sun just beams on that white wall and then bounces off onto the stone, it is pretty hot. And I have Phlox Amina growing right along the edge of the path, and it is just stunning. It is a beautiful pink. It is that kind of like bubblegum pink. So if you love bubblegum pink, you're gonna love this plant. And it is one of those shorter plants. So far, I haven't seen it get very tall. I forget how tall it tops out as, but it is one of those shorter native plants that you can put next to your board, or next to the edge of your border, next to your paths, next to your patio, in a pot. Like, it is so versatile. Now, to be fair, I haven't ever grown it in a pot. So take that last part with a grain of salt, but if you keep it moist, it will probably do just fine in a pot. Now, it is one of the more drought-tolerant phloxes, So I haven't put it to the test in a pot, like I said, but it is getting all of that heat, and it is in a drier soil. It's in a spot where when it rains, it gets moisture from the eaves of the garage, but in between, like in the breaks of rain storms, when there's nothing happening, it's still thriving. It's still just doing its thing. Like I said, it's been blooming on and off for months. Mostly on. Mostly on. So I can't really get enough of that plant, and I've paired it with Lanceleaf Coreopsis in the courtyard garden, and I just think that is such a pretty combination. Here's the native range of Phlox Amina in the green according to bonap.org. Next up on my list is Verbena. Now, before we get into species names, I'm going to say this. Verbena is one of those plants butterflies go bonkers for, and so do moths. Moths and butterflies absolutely love verbena, and the bees actually also do as well. So it's a versatile plant when it comes to bringing in the wildlife, but verbena is just one of my top plants for butterflies. I cannot get enough, and I actually, unfortunately, no longer have any native verbena in my garden, but I plan to rectify that as soon as possible. I'm probably going to go to the nurseries in the fall and look for some verbena, because I currently only have a non-native called Verbena bonariensis. And yes, I am going to mention some non-native plants in this video, but it is mostly native plants. So Verbena bonariensis, it really brings in the butterflies and the moths and the cute little hummingbird moths and all of that wonderful stuff. So I really can't not have it. Now, if I can find a native that I can replace it with, then I will probably do that over time, you know, gradually shift over to the native one, because I do prefer natives. But for now, the Verbena bonariensis is doing great, and it's one of those plants, at least in my garden, where it doesn't, like, it spreads, but it spreads just enough to be kind of like you're glad that it spread, right? It's not a thug, it's not taking over the whole garden, but it might be different in your garden. So keep it in check, watch it. What I've noticed is it will live for a while in a spot, and then it'll die off, and it'll reseed itself, live over in that spot, die off, reseed itself, live over in this spot over here, die off, and you get the point. It spreads around the garden, but kind of in like these little sections that don't really affect my other plants. So it doesn't really seem to be a bother. And it's one of those plants that is kind of thin, kind of see-through. So it gets tall, but you can see through it, and things can kind of grow around it. And so it seems to play well with others, at least in my garden. And for context, I'm up on a hill, and I have well-drained soil. I have mixes of clay and sand. I have kind of all kinds of different soils here, but I do have some red clay here and there in patches. But everything, like almost every spot in my garden, except for one or two small areas, is well-drained soil. So just for reference, that's what I'm working with. So I don't know how this plant would react in a really moist, like wet environment with loam soil. Like, I don't know how it would react in that. When it comes to verbena, there are some native verbenas that you can grow, and I will name them right now. So there is Verbina Sta, which likes medium to wet soil, and it is, of course, going to attract the hummingbirds and the butterflies alike. It's great for rain gardens, it's great for naturalizing, it's low maintenance, and it gets those purplish to blue flowers from like July to September. So me personally, I have this huge gap in my garden of late July through September, and so this would be perfect to fill that gap when it comes to bloom time. So bloom time, that's when I have a lot of a gap in my bloom time, so that would be great for that. Unfortunately, this is for, again, wet gardens. Maybe I can start to try to incorporate this around my pond, because maybe it can live in my pond. Maybe it can live in the shallow part of my pond or on the bank near the shallow end. I'd love to try it because I've been wanting this plant for so long, but because it really likes that wet moisture, I've been putting off trying it. So, you know, there you go. And here's the native range of Verbina Sta on the screen right now, according to bonap.org, in case you want to see if it's native to you. Okay, next up for native verbenas is Verbina stricta. Verbina stricta is that other verbena that's very similar to the one we just talked about. It's similar to Hastata, but Verbina stricta can handle more of a dry situation. It can handle more of a medium to dry yard, and so that is a really good one for me. Unfortunately, it's not as native to my area. It's more native to the central United States. So if you live in the central United States, it's more native to you. I still would be willing to grow it though, because I think it's native to my state, but not native to my county or something like that. So, you know, I think it's a pretty cool plant. Yeah, it's native to the west side of Tennessee, but not necessarily to the east side of Tennessee. So that is why it's technically not native to my local area, but it's more native than Bonariensis. So, you know, there's that. Bonariensis is one of those verbenas, you know, I talked about it earlier, it's not native, but I do have it. Bonariensis is one of those plants where it could be invasive in certain regions, but it's not invasive in my state. So I grow it and I don't really mind it, and it doesn't really, like I said, it doesn't compete with other things. It just kind of sits in between my other stuff. Let's talk about Urticifolia. Okay, Verbena Urticifolia. This one has like white flowers instead of like the typical purple or bluish purple that you see in the others that we talked about. This one, I'm not sure how much it's going to attract the butterflies because I haven't seen pictures or videos of it, and you know, I just don't know how much it's going to attract the butterflies, but it's worth a try because it is verbena and butterflies love verbena. Maybe it would attract the smaller butterflies, or maybe it would attract all of them. I'm not really sure. But that one is native to a huge swath of the eastern United States, like a huge swath. And I'll put that on the screen right now so you can see that. Okay, so next up on my list of native herbaceous perennials for the butterflies is butterfly weed, Asclepias tuberosa. I pulled that out of my memory bank. Good for me. Butterfly weed is one of those shorter milkweeds that has orange blooms. Now, I've seen variations where they're more of a yellow. I've seen variations where they're more of a darker orange, almost red color. So it can have some natural variations from what I can tell from seed. So keep that in mind. But this is a tough plant that can handle drought really well. Now, that being said, this plant can kind of like disappear in late summer, early fall. So just keep that in mind. You're going to want to have some asters to fill in the gap, or something else that's going to bloom later in the season to fill in the gap for you. So butterfly weed is one of those great plants because not only is it a wonderful nectar source for the butterflies, but it is also a host plant for the monarch caterpillars, of course. And it's just a really great plant. And so here is the native range of butterfly weed according to bonap.org. Next up on my list is bee balm, or wild bergamot, or Monarda fistulosa. I just kind of go back and forth. I usually call it bergamot, but you know, Monarda fistulosa, that way you know exactly which species I'm talking about here. This is the one that gets the light lilac. Actually, it's basically the color of my shirt. The flowers are pretty much the color of my shirt. The butterflies, the hummingbirds, and the bees all adore this plant. This is one of those plants you're going to want to sprinkle throughout your garden. You're going to want to have either a huge swath of it in one spot, or you're going to want to have it kind of in every garden that you have. It is just so gorgeous, and swallowtails go nuts for it. So if you want to bring in the swallowtails, this is one of those ones that you want to have for sure. I can't get enough of it. And so here's the native range of Monarda officiosa according to bonap.org. All right, next up is Joe Pyweed. Joe Pyweed. There are more than one species of Joe Pyweed. So in this video, I'm just going to be talking about it in a general basis so that you can just look up the native ones for you. But I am going to say that in general, Joe Pyweed is typically a pink flower, and it typically gets really, really tall. So, you know, when you pick your Joe Pyweed, just keep in mind that you want to put it kind of at the back of your garden because it's going to get very, very tall, usually. Now, there are some cultivars of Joe Pyweed called like Little Joe and things like that, and those can typically be 2.5, 3 feet tall, maybe 4 feet tall. But your street species Joe Pyweeds, a lot of those are going to be 5 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet, maybe even 8 feet tall. So keep that in mind. I've seen Joe Pyweed grown at the local botanical garden, and the way that they use it in the garden is usually as one of those herbaceous perennials that you kind of treat like a shrub, if that makes sense. So yes, it comes back from the ground every year, so it doesn't have any woody stems. But even though it does flush back up from the ground every year, it gets so large and so full, and the flowers are so big that it feels more like a shrub by the time it's actually mature for the season. So keep that in mind wherever you plant it. Make sure it has plenty of space, kind of give it its own corner or something. And yeah, I am not going to mention the species names because there's more than one, and you can look those up, but I will tell you the genus name. Oh, this is one of those that changed names over the years. So hopefully I give you the right name. I think it is Eutrochium. I may have to look up how to say that. Eutrochium. Okay, it's Eutrochium. All right, so just Google Eutrochium and Google your state, or actually your best bet is to do Eutrochium and then Bonap. Let's double check that though, because since the name has changed, it might give you some issues. Let's check. Okay, now we can actually talk about this really easily because Bonap does have it. So Eutrochium fistulosum, that one's native to my county, Knox County, Tennessee. Eutrochium maculatum is not native to my county, but it's native to my state, and it's native more north. So if you live more in the north of the United States, maculatum is going to be native for you, and fistulosum will be native for a lot of you as well. And then there's Eutrochium purpureum, and that one is native to my county in East Tennessee, and it is native to a lot of states north of me, but also some areas south of me, but not really, really far. A little bit of Florida, but not a lot of Florida. So that gives you a general idea, and that is based on the Bonap website, of course, as I always say. So those are the main species of Joe Pyweed. I said I wasn't going to go into the specifics, but I did anyways. All right, next up on my list, and definitely not, this list is not in order at all. This is really a very, very vital plant for my butterfly garden and really helps draw in the swallowtails to my garden. So to me, it's essential, and that is purple coneflower, Echinacea purpurea. And Echinacea purpurea is so important for the butterflies and the bees as well. They also love it. It is fantastic. It's beautiful. It gets tall, for me at least. It gets really tall. There are a lot of cultivars of it, but I don't have any real experience with any of the cultivars because I plant Echinacea purpurea and a couple other Echinaceas, and I just don't plant the cultivars. So I can't really tell you if there's a cultivar out there that is really high value for the butterflies, but let's talk about Echinacea purpurea for a second. Okay, so here's the Bonap map of Echinacea purpurea, so you can see its native range in the green. Now, as you can see, I'm going to talk about this map for a moment. As you can see, Echinacea purpurea is native to the light green counties, but it's native to the dark green states. Does that make sense? Okay. The yellow counties means it's more rare, okay? The orange, let's see what the orange means because I don't remember what the orange means. Orange means extirpated, but this is its historic range. So where you see the orange, that is historically where it was, but it was extirpated from that area. Now, the yellow again means present but rare. And the light green is native and present and not rare. And the dark green means it's in the state. It's native in the state. So that is how you read the Bonap map. And I just wanted to talk about that because, since Echinacea purpurea does have these other colors on its Bonap map, it's a great opportunity to explain what these other colors mean and just kind of how to read it. So moving on to mountain mint. There are a lot of species of mountain mint, but I think Mount Cuba says that clustered mountain mint is the best for the most pollinators, but I will also say I love hoary mountain mint. I haven't really noticed butterflies on the clustered mountain mint in my garden, but that's not fair of me to say because it's on the outside of my garden near the road, and it is an area I don't really see hardly ever. I'm almost never up there. So I haven't really studied it and seen if it really does draw in the swallowtail butterflies or butterflies at all or not. But it does draw in a lot of all the other pollinators, like the bees, the wasps, all those little guys. That's clustered mountain mint. So Mount Cuba found that clustered mountain mint, I think it was the one out of the mountain mints that drew in the most diversity of species of pollinators. And maybe even it might have even been the top herbaceous perennial out of like all of them that drew in the most diversity of species of pollinator. But I am going to say that hoary mountain mint is my favorite because I think hoary mountain mint is very, very beautiful and it still attracts a lot of diversity of pollinators, but also it definitely attracts swallowtails because I've seen them on it in my own garden. So I can actually say that for certain. Now, let's look up the names of hoary mountain mint and clustered mountain mint. Okay, hoary mountain mint is Pygnanthium incanum, and clustered mountain mint is Pygnanthium muticum. Okay, so you got the muticum and the incanum. All right, those are my top favorite mountain mints, just in case you wanted to know. And here are the native ranges for clustered mountain mint and hoary mountain mint on the screen right now according to bonap.org. Okay, next on my list is frostweed. Frostweed is one of those plants that definitely attracts the butterflies, but be careful with this one because this one is a delightfully aggressive native. It is vital in my opinion, and I think it is a keystone species because of it being in the aster family, and it definitely attracts Gulf fritillary butterflies because I get Gulf fritillary butterflies every year in my garden because of my passion vine, and they use frostweed like it's going out of style. They love frostweed. Frostweed gets very, very tall though, so that's really important for you to know because it's going to grow so tall that you should probably put it at the back of your border. And I learned that the hard way, okay? But the problem is it is an aggressive spreader. So it gets a lot of seeds, but it spreads by roots as well, I think. And the roots are like legs. So once this plant gets to a certain size, and it doesn't take long, once it gets to a certain size, it is hard to pull out by hand So it kind of becomes one of those plants that you have to dig up. And so it is kind of frustrating if you have too much of it growing, and it is prolific. Now, why do I still grow it? Because I just love it, okay? I just love it. And the way that I strategize growing this plant is when it is in front of something that I don't want it to block, I just chop it all the way down to like a few inches tall. But frostweed is also known as white crownbeard, and its scientific name is Verbena virginica. And it has like these winged stems. Now, again, if it's in front of something that I don't want it to block, I just cut it way down to like a few inches from the ground. And I'm like, if you live, you live. If you don't, you don't, because I have 10,000 of you in the rest of my garden, so I will be fine. So I usually let it grow as it wishes up against my fence at the very back of my borders, and then as it's closer to the front of a border, I chop it way, way, way back. I just did it earlier, and just like a couple weeks ago I did it. And so here is the native range of frostweed according to bonap.org. Oh, and I forgot to mention frostweed. It attracts, bees, butterflies. It attracts like the Gulf fritillary butterfly, but it also attracts common buckeye butterflies, and it sometimes attracts swallowtail butterflies. So it attracts different species, which is really, really nice. Next up on my list is ironweed. Now, there are many species of ironweed, so we're not going to cover specific species of ironweed, but we are going to talk about the genus. So let me pull that up for you right now. New York Ironweed helps me pull that up. So Vernonia is the genus, so look for the native Vernonias to you. I have either New York Ironweed or tall ironweed. I actually don't know which it is, because I'm pretty sure I started growing New York Ironweed from seed and put it in the garden, and I think that's what I have, so I think I have New York Ironweed, but I'm not sure because sometimes it looks more like tall ironweed, so I don't really know for sure which one I have actually, which is another reason I'm not really going into the specific species. But Vernonias are fantastic. Ironweeds are fantastic for butterflies and bees and birds, okay? So if you let this plant go to seed in your garden, the seeds will be bird food. The finches, they go nuts for it. I think other species of birds go nuts for it too. It is just an all-around amazing wildlife plant, not to mention that the actual plant itself is also a host to butterflies. So it's a host to butterflies, it's a nectar source to butterflies, it is food for birds in the winter if you leave the seeds on it, it's got gorgeous purple flowers, and it gets really tall, so it's great for the back of a border. So what are you doing? Why aren't you planting Vernonia? Why aren't you planting ironweed yet? Why? Why aren't you? But I will say, it is prolific. So it's similarly prolific to the Verbenas, the frostweed that we just talked about. But I think it's a little easier to pull. I can't remember. I actually haven't pulled one out in a while, so it might be hard to pull out too. I can't remember. But typically with this one, again, I just chop it back. I just chop it back if it's getting too tall, and then I let it flush back out more blooms. That's just what I do. It's just how I handle it. I'm about to have to do that soon because I have some that's so tall that I can't see my pond from my living room anymore, and I'm like, that's not okay. I want to see my pond from my living room. So I will be chopping some of mine back. But it is wonderful for the butterflies, and even the swallowtails visit it. Not as much as purple coneflower and monarda and phlox, but it's still pretty high up on the list. And the Gulf fritillaries also love it when they want it. When they love it, okay? What can I say? And I have one more category of plants that I want you to grow in your garden, and that is the genus, that is the family of asters in general. But specifically, let's just see, what's an aster? Late purple aster would be an example I would give. I love late purple aster, and it does attract the butterflies, the smaller butterflies usually. I get a lot of like checker spot, not checker spot. Is it checker spot? Oh gosh, which is it? Or is it checkered white? It's one of those checkered butterflies. It has like the white checkered pattern on it. They love this plant. So Symphotrichum patens. Symphotrichum patens is a late purple aster. But just in general, Symphotrichum, there's a bajillion, not scientifically accurate of what I just said, but there's a bajillion Symphotrichum plants. So you just need to figure out what Symphotrichum plants are native to you. And again, you can just type in Symphotrichum Bonap into Google, and it'll bring up, you just click the little link, and it'll bring up a bunch of maps of Symphotrichums that are native. And remember, native is in the green. Okay, so when you use Bonap, that's how you use it. And so why is Symphotrichum so important? Well, asters, specifically like Symphotrichum and those type of asters, those are late bloomers typically. So they bloom, you know, September, October, November, somewhere around there. And they're fall bloomers, late summer, fall, you know, early fall bloomers. And this is such a vital thing in your garden for for late migrating butterflies. So for butterflies that are in the garden later in the year, okay? And also, asters are host plants for a lot of our butterflies. And I think they're either the checker spots or pearly crescents. Either checker spots or crescents use them as a host. I forget which exact ones. Please be kind to me in the comments. I know this video is chaotic. I'm sorry. Learning that as I'm going. But that's my list. That's my list of my top 10 native herbaceous perennials for butterflies, okay? So, highly recommend these plants. I think that time and time again, when I grow plants in the garden, these are the stars of the show when it comes to butterflies. But let's talk about one that I definitely should have put on this list, but forgot to put on it. And that is Liatris, okay? Liatris. Such an important, oh my gosh, Liatris. Isn't that the actual genus? Okay, so Liatris spicata is just one example, but there are many, many, many other Liatris plants that are wonderful for your butterflies, okay? Monarchs love Liatris, so keep that in mind. Liatris, they're beautiful. Most of them are purple. Sometimes they can be white. Okay, sometimes they're like a pink purple, but they're typically like a purpley color. And they're gorgeous. And they bloom sometimes like June, July, August, so kind of that range. Mine are starting to bloom right now in my garden in late June. But this website, this Missouri Botanical Garden website, says July to August. So either my Liatris are blooming early or sometimes maybe they bloom in late June as well. So, food for thought. But I cannot believe I forgot to put this on this list. So I guess this list is actually technically 11 native flowers for butterflies to nectar on. I don't know. But we're just going to say 10 because this is a bonus. Liatris is a bonus, even though it should be way further up the list because it is beloved. But it's in a spot that I can't see very well from my house, and so I don't have a lot of footage of butterflies on it, so that's part of it. But it is definitely one of those great plants for butterflies. And again, there's different kinds of Liatris. Some are more dry loving, some are more wet loving, so there's options for you, okay? All right. My voice went up a little too high there, but it's fine. Okay. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know which of these is your favorite butterfly plant, if you have one. And don't forget, also pop your favorite native butterfly nectar plants in the comments down below. What's native to you, and what is, in your opinion, the top native butterfly nectaring plant? And what is the top plant in your garden for swallowtail butterflies? Because that is really, that's where my heart lives, is with the swallowtails. I can't get enough swallowtails. But don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button if you don't want to miss out on future content, and if you want to tell me how much you loved this video. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys. Hey guys, don't forget to follow me on Blue Sky and Instagram. These are the two best social media accounts other than YouTube, where you can find me and you can see me post photos of the garden, thoughts on wildlife, and more. So don't forget to follow me over there. Brand new items are now available in the shop. Thanks so much to viewers like you for supporting the channel. To support the channel, like the video, comment, and subscribe. You can also support my work by buying art from me at macylu.com. Thanks for watching!